The way organizations hire leaders hasn't kept pace with how work has changed. In this episode, I'm joined by Amy Sulgrove, CEO of Executive Talent Group, and my partner in launching Amplify Executive Search, setting the new standard in executive search. We talk about why traditional search models fall short and how leadership expectations are evolving, and why pairing executive search with coaching and onboarding support isn't a nice to have, it's essential. If you're thinking about the leaders that your organization needs next and how to set them up for success, this conversation will change how you think about executive search. This is The Courageous Choice, where leadership meets the future of work. Hi, and welcome to this episode of The Courageous Choice. I'm excited today because we've got Amy Sulgrove joining, and Amy and I have a new collaboration that we're really excited to share with others and talk about. But I also wanted to hear a lot about Amy's journey and what led her to this state. So Amy is the founder and CEO of Talent Executives Group. It's a national executive search firm dedicated to building lasting leadership teams and growth-focused organizations. She has more than 20 years of experience in C-suite and senior leadership recruitment, and she partners with companies to identify and place transformative executives. She has a background with Capital One Auto Finance, and she also runs a family of brands, including networking executives. So we'll hear a little bit about her vision and her entrepreneurial journey as we kick in today as well. So welcome, Amy. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm excited to be here, and I'm super excited about the new partnership that we are launching. So a little bit about myself. I grew up professionally inside corporate talent acquisition, as you mentioned. I sat at the table with executives who were trying to solve real world business problems and not just backfill a role. But over time, I kept seeing the same thing: search firms who were smart and capable, but they were so transactional. And there wasn't really that strong partnership. Something that I'm very, very focused on, and people will always hear me talk about, is relationships and communication. And so I launched Talent Executives Group because I wanted there to be a firm that really worked with the leadership team and was a part of the leadership team. Somebody that could bring, precision and cultural alignment to long-term success and not just fill a seat. And that's how we launched.
I love your story, and I think that that's what I see in the most successful executives or entrepreneurs is they saw a problem and they just set out to solve it, right? And so there was like a driving purpose in that. One of the trends I'm hearing too is just that this human connection, this real kind of personal attention is going to be the differentiator, right? In the world of AI and all of the things that technology brings, and certainly we want to be powered by that, but not led by it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm excited to talk a little bit more. So maybe share as you made that transition to going on your own. What you said your driving force was to really kind of solve that problem and be that partnership in the C-suite. What have been some learnings you've had on your journey?
So some of the learnings are that traditional search is optimized really around speed and slate of candidates. It's not really been focused on the messy reality of onboarding and navigating the team dynamics, um, as well as building trust with the leadership team quickly. And so some of the things that we've realized is leadership, or I'm sorry, retained search, any search shouldn't stop at the final hire, right? So it shouldn't stop the day that the person is hired and then kind of just give them to the company to take off and start training. But there's a missing gap in there. So the first 90 days are so incredibly critical for that leader to get on board and be successful in their role. So that was really something that we realized was a real missing gap.
It's you know it's true, right? And I when I was in house as a CHRO, I saw it many times, and we'd have new hire failure. And after investing in a search and getting people on board, and to have a failure in that first year or even sooner is like devastating, right? And it's certainly a distraction for any organization. It's really been, I think that your learnings and my learnings and our own experiences is kind of what led us to collaborate between our two organizations to launch Amplify Executive Search. And for the listeners who don't know what it is, maybe you can share a little bit about it.
Sure, absolutely. So, Amplify Executive Search is really a combination of talent executives and gig talent collective. The way that we see this is it's for talent executives to continue their precision on the search. However, go at it from a different angle because Gig Talent Collective comes in with us at the beginning of the search to really understand the company, the culture, the transformation that they're looking for, and really where they're headed. And then we come together as a team to really build that job description. Um, it's people that have actually been in that hot seat before. So people that have the real world transformation experience, people that have, been as part of the chapter of that book in the past and can see what could potentially could go wrong if it's not done a certain way. We come together and hire the person. We obviously we find the right talent, and then as a collaboration, we add on that 90 days of leadership to really get them ingrained in the culture and their next steps. So it's a win-win from the company side and for the hire that we bring on. It's really like a partnership made in heaven.
I love it. By, integrating that 90 days of executive coaching and onboarding support, it really, increases that time to productivity for a leader as they assimilate. They can be really intentional during those 90 days and they're navigating, right? Like you go, I can tune into being a new executive and you go from like knowing how to do everything and feeling super competent to even if you're still like obviously knowledgeable in your whatever your profession is, you're new to an organization. You have to navigate things. You're wanting to really quickly build that assimilation into your team. And to your point, like organizations have different levels of internal HR support and others who can really support that onboarding. And so to me, it really is a no brainer. It should be just part of really services that search firms offer. I think when they're actively being partners.
It's amazing that this isn't the norm. So it's something that we look at as, a year down the road from now. How do we see this partnership? We see it as the default expectation. It shouldn't be the exception. This is
Ah,
something that every company should do. And it sets the organization up for success with their new hire. It sets the new hire up for success. And the 90 days, the first 90 days are so critical in any hire. And boy, it can be a really expensive miss, right? Not just financially, but in slowing down that next step of the company and where they're going.
yeah, I love it. And it's really aligned with some kind of fundamental beliefs that I think we share around, in this new world of work, it's really about having the right people doing the right work, right? And so, I was like, well, I could build a recruiting part, but that's not what gig talent is. Gig talent is more the agency for expert talent in the gig economy, people who have built their own businesses and are entrepreneurs doing transformation and things like that, but and coaches, right? And so but you, the talent executives groups, is the expert at that, boutique routine search at the with the same level of standards and things like that. So by having, each kind of doing the thing that they're great at, to me, that's really what the future of work looks like. And, there's lots of ways to solve those problems, but it was kind of like our ability to step in and lead it the way we're advising others to do. So
And both of our companies are so similar in the way that we think and our expectations of our team and the way that we communicate and build those relationships that it really felt incredibly natural to come together and, like you said, have the center of excellence that both of us bring, both organizations, and mirror it, bring it together because it really shouldn't, bringing on talent shouldn't be separate conversations from culture and performance. Like it's not two separate conversations. It's really bringing them together and, you know, building leaders that can pivot in ambiguity and change and be successful at it.
100%. I've been talking about this idea of business casting, actually. It's like, when you think about a casting agent, right? They're going to get the right people in the right roles and build that right ensemble and the magic. And I feel like that's what, whether it's internal talent leaders, a board that's trying to get the right leadership team in place, or us as partners trying to do that. Like there's places where a fractional or interim or project based gig resource, and there's times when you really need that absolute right internal leader who's going to be setting the vision and driving the organization forward. And so for us to be able to like support that in a cohesive way um, is pretty darn exciting.
It's super exciting. It's super exciting. This partnership was literally a match made in heaven. So it's
Let's
going to be
let's
amazing.
let's talk about that a little bit. When we think about, so our listeners are comprised of all different internal leaders, but also business owners and entrepreneurs. And we're both women-owned business, kind of small emerging businesses that have I found us very values aligned. And I know you and I both have pretty big visions, but share your experience from that first time kind of I reached out and we started having conversations. Because I think it's easy to close down or be myopic when we're focused on something. And I felt like we both this just hit us at the right time, but it's been an interesting experience. I'd love to hear what it was like for you.
It has been a really interesting experience, and it's amazing how quickly it kicked off. So, you reached out, and it was an amazing just reconnection. It had been many, many, many years since we had ever connected, and just really getting into our initial values, right? So the people that we are to the core, it was more of a personal conversation at first, and realizing that we really gelled, and then understanding where we were in each other's in the business world, understanding the influence that we have with companies, with organizations, and with peers, understanding where we're looking to take our businesses. I think both of us were in a very similar situation in really trying to um, put our arms around something much larger. And this particular partnership, it doesn't take away at all from what we've built. It really just adds to it. The amazing thing is I don't think either of us felt like we have to keep anything close to the vest. I mean, it's one of those partnerships and discussions where we are looking at this as the holistic whole of the exciting thing that we're building, and we are 100% open to, not just open to, but committed to helping each other in our own businesses and build Amplify together as well.
It's so true. On our last episode with my sister interviewing me, we talked a lot about flow, and we talked about when it's right, it flows. It doesn't mean it doesn't take work or anything like that. We talked about in the context of like personal relationships. We talked about it, about clients, and even just about kind of where you're going. And to me, this just flowed the whole time, and it it really was just indicative of like you said, the values alignment, and I think that the opportunity to bring a greater solution to market, which is something that we've both been really focused on. I'd love for us to talk a little bit from your lens, since you have this incredible insight into different organizations. When you think about leadership capabilities that organizations are looking for right now, what do you see as highest in demand?
It's a great question, because things change, right? So as the economy changes, things change. But what I see right now is absolutely cross-functional influence. For a long time, things seemed very vertically aligned. People were excellent at one particular vertical, and they knew everything inside and out about that. It did make organizations a bit choppier, but now what we see is it's especially with AI moving as quickly as it's moving. It's not about being deep. It's about being horizontally, you know, full of breadth. So leaders that can lead through ambiguity and change, um, leaders that can utilize AI into practical decision making, leaders that can build trust while still driving performance. So it's not so much now about it has to just be HR that is building the culture of the organization, but it's about HR um, training and giving the not not the instruction, but the material and basically just allowing those leaders to build the culture around them. People stay because people stay at an organization because of the people that work there and the people they report to. And it's so incredibly important that the influence is building trust.
Yeah, trust is one of those things that I think many organizations are struggling with. And absolutely, there's no question that leadership sets the tone. One of the things that I've seen is this, kind of with COVID, we all like went home, and leaders really were just trying to kind of keep things on the rails. And so we got very a little bit siloed, but it was more just because we had to focus on execution and putting our arms around our own teams, and like nothing bad, but we got very siloed. And even though, some of our normal cadences that were those cross-functional that would happen in the office and things like that, they maybe weren't operating in the same way. And now and then fast forward, right? So new leaders get promoted over time. Some might be new to leadership. They might not have had, reference to that prior way of working. So now when we're trying to kind of get our arms around organizational alignment, and to your point, to activate AI across an organization, which clearly, in order to be effective, is really going to be cross-functional. Leaders now need to develop that kind of I call it an enterprise level view on leading and on talent and lots of different things, and that's new for some leaders. And it's so that's a shift that's happening, but I think it's critical because you can't actually affect the change needed at the pace needed if you're not working cross functionally. So I think that's a really critical point.
Well,
Um,
and
yeah,
bringing ambiguity into being able to, there is a lot of ambiguity out there, right? And AI is changing daily. But really using having that ambiguity, but still creating clarity for others on your team, that's a skill that not everybody has. And it's a skill that, you know, a lot of times it takes somebody previously being in a seat like that to help others learn how to create that clarity for others. And so that's why it's so important to have this partnership with Gig Talent, because Gig Talent has, you know, what are the 80 plus consultants that have been in that seat before. And so being able to choose the leader that's been in that seat that really gels with the company that we're working with and be able to help them move through the ambiguity and create clarity is huge.
when you're looking and you guys are placing key leaders for your clients, and you're trying to really kind of assess their ability to navigate that ambiguity, what are you looking for? Do you have any tips for people? Because I think everybody wants leaders who can do that.
Everybody wants leaders that can do that. A lot of it is based on the questions that we ask, right? So it's not about a resume. You know, we have to have a resume, but we're not there's all too many search firms that are all about the resume and it's just about the numbers, right? Passing over X number of resumes and they check the box, but it's not about the resume. It's about the intimate time that you spend speaking with the potential candidate and really digging in. Anyone can write a resume these days, and AI definitely helps. So being able to ask those questions that if you haven't been in that seat in the past, sometimes you don't know to even ask those questions. um, the other piece of it is really understanding the company that we're recruiting for. So it's not just about the industry, it's not just about the position, but it's about the company culture, right? It's about the makeup of the team. What are you missing on the team from a culture perspective that you don't currently have? Because it takes all different kinds of minds to make a team work and kick off on all cylinders. So it's much more than just the resume.
We haven't talked about this yet, but there was an idea that I was talking to a CIO, a sitting CIO, with a e-tail organization, and she had this idea. She basically said, people out like she's a CIO, so her friends call her when they need advice, technology advice, or they need to hire someone. And she goes, we should formalize that because to your point, you've got AI helping write the resumes. You've got AI in many organizations, like sourcing through all the applications, right? And so you've got this like AI thing, and you don't even know what's real, right? And then if you layer on top of it an organization where, if I'm hiring a CIO, but I'm not a technical, like that isn't my background, so I don't know exactly. You can kind of be spun by someone who can talk well and speak well, and they just have more, jargon and knowledge than you do. And that can get people in trouble. And I've seen it really in any function. We've seen it where you have especially in fast growing organizations where they have a really brilliant core team that's helped them get to whatever level of success. Now they're going into Series A, Series B, Series C, and they might need different skills and levels of leadership. You can wake up one day and you've got 50 people in your marketing team because you're throwing resources at it. You didn't have a leader who necessarily knew how to who design and run it. They were brilliant marketer but not necessarily, leading that size of an organization. So her idea was like create an easy button with some trusted sitting executives so that you don't ever have that gap in knowledge. It's almost like an on-call executive who can help you in validating, both what you're looking like, what's unique to that organization and what they're looking for, but also the technical skills that we may not have. And I know your team also provides that for clients, but I don't know. Maybe we should implement that idea.
Wow. Wow, I think that
Yeah,
might have to be our next rendition, right? I
I
mean,
know.
that's amazing, especially for smaller organizations that might not have, the built out, they might not be able to have a lifeline that they can call within their organization to jump on a call or to be in that meeting.
Yeah.
But, some of those smaller organizations absolutely could use that. That's really interesting. I like that.
Okay. So we're developing a roadmap live on
I
this
know.
board.
We're
But I think
developing a
that we
roadmap while our podcast listeners are listening to us.
100%. Hey, you know what? I come from an abundance. We should all do this. But it's true, having that expertise and to your point, like not everybody has it or has the time to slow down to find it. So I think that whether it's your recruiting team building it in or us, if you're using external partners, having an expectation that they can really get beyond not only the resume, but even just the smooth talking interview, because I think that level of validation is going to be critical as we move forward. I don't know if you heard this, but I think it's Amazon and some of the others that when they're hiring engineers, they used to just do kind of testing remote, but now because there's so many kind of ways to game the system with AI and those kinds of things, they actually fly people on site and they do like proctored exams to validate those skills. So I think we're moving into a whole new world where we got to think about these things different.
We are moving into a whole new world. And honestly, a few years ago, I was working with a company who, interestingly enough, had a situation multiple times in which they were doing face to face Zoom interviews, and the candidate had an earpiece in and was getting, like, it would be a pause, and the candidate was getting fed the answers through the earpiece and would get hired and, would eventually begin working for the company and was evidently working for multiple companies at the same time through this situation that they were in. It was horrible. I mean,
That
complete
is
fraud.
horrible.
So
It is a new world. I mean, that's just like I hate that, right? I hate
I
that
know.
there's kind of bad actors, but so we'll come up with new systems, I think, to work around that. When you think about one truth that you wish more CEOs or boards understood about why executive placements succeed or fail, what do you think about one truth?
I think that it's all about the fact we talked about this a little bit earlier, I believe, but a hire doesn't end at start date, right? Like the hire process the recruiting process does not end at start date. Um, a new hire cannot be successful regardless of the experience that they've had in the past and what they bring to the table if they're not set up for success with the company that they move into. The first 90 days are so incredibly critical. So it's difficult to say that a candidate is not successful after they've passed all of the qualifications and been vetted by everybody. But if they don't have the support system once they begin their new role, that's that's something that companies really need to think through.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, it's really interesting too because, organizations, I think of them as, they're systems, organizational systems, and new leaders are coming into an existing system and expected to just figure it out. And right now, those systems are going through such dramatic change on their own. It's super dynamic. So having that support and external support, um, actually, not only, like you said, benefits the candidate, but also their boss and their teams and the organization overall.
Well, and it can be an extremely expensive miss, right? A mishire is it's expensive on the dollars, as we mentioned, from just, the initial hire, but it's incredibly expensive on the time missed and having to go out and find somebody else or slow down the transformation of what the company's working towards because now they're having to go back and bring somebody else in. So it's way more involved, and the first 90 days count.
Yeah, the first 90 days totally count. All right. So, as a founder, what's one courageous choice that you've had to make that helps shape who you are as a leader today?
I think I'd have to gosh, there's a bunch, right? As a founder, there's so many different things that we have to make choices about and ponder, and sometimes we just have to go with it. But I think that the most courageous choice that I've made and what has become the most lucrative for us is, it's tempting to say yes to everything, but getting real honest with what we actually say yes to. So it's not necessarily just about volume and grabbing anything that comes our way, but being really honest in that the precision is only going to happen if we only take on what we're excellent at. And that was really a choice. It's hard to say goodbye to dollars that could potentially be coming in, but it's also the right thing to do.
It's totally the right thing to do. That is such great advice. I actually say that to a lot of consultants, right? Because when you first make that leap, many, we're nervous and you just kind of want whatever revenue is coming your way. And you often learn the hard way where it's like either I'm just not the right I shouldn't be doing this. So I'm not the best person to do this on behalf of the client. So it's not in alignment. Or um, or you fill that space with things that are just kind of okay and then you don't have capacity for the stuff you really want to do. So very, very powerful. I think I'm so excited and really grateful to be partnering with you and collaborating with you with our two organizations. I'm excited to see what the year brings, and I share that vision for you that 90-day support for new leaders really just becomes a standard for organizations as they invest in bringing new leaders along. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here today. I really appreciate it, and thank you, listeners. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm super excited for what this year is going to bring.
Thank you so much.